That day, about a week before my birthday, I lost my innocence. A priest had psychologically sexually abused me. The institution tried to cover it up by attacking me and trying to expel me. And this whole sordid affair involved priests, university officials, and a team of attorneys. How do these bastards sleep at night? Continuing the theme of exposing corruption, here's a point. The spiritual corruption and betrayal on the part of various religious leaders, it's off the charts. Yesterday, I revealed a nightmare story of how my spiritual director broke the seal of confession in a very public, outlandish fashion. I went after him in church courts in Rome. After 3 years, they found him guilty and they excommunicated him, kicked his butt out. 3 months later, to save his own reputation, the priest's bishop bullshitted the Vatican, violating all kinds of protocols and rules, and got them to reverse their finding. And just like that, nothing ever happened. For more specific details about that, please see yesterday's commentary. So when we're talking about corruption, it's not just the injustice an individual faces, it's also the institution flexing its considerable muscle to re-victimize the individual. And of course, the perpetrator walks scot-free. It's irritating as hell. Gosh, it makes you angry as hell. That's what we see going on in D.C. right now. But here's another personal example of it happening spiritually. And again, I know because once again, I was the guy right in the middle of it. Near the end of my sophomore year at Notre Dame, I started getting a series of strange letters through campus mail. So they were untraceable, no return address. Campus mail doesn't work like that. They just sort it all out in the back room and throw it in your mailbox. At first, they were kind of innocent enough, actually sort of immature. And the first one was a St. Patrick's Day card about this big, little leprechaun on the front of it. That spring, I was trying out to be the leprechaun at Notre Dame. That's Notre Dame's mascot. So I didn't really think anything about it, except it was signed, Your Secret Pal. Bet you didn't know you had a secret pal. Then a few more notes started arriving through campus mail. They got longer, more detailed. And the last one turned very dark. My secret pal confessed in the last one that he had always wanted to approach guys he was attracted to and never had until now. Then came the bunker buster. And apologies here, but this is just the hardcore fact of what it said. He said in that letter, the last one I got, he routinely masturbated in the shower thinking of me. I was absolutely freaked out. I had no idea who this was. I started fearing that this freak was going to jump out from behind a building or something when he saw the opportunity. I went to a priest I knew on campus and showed him all the 7 mailings. It was very near the end of the year, sophomore year for me, and with only about a week left, he advised me just always walk with friends to the library, etc. after dark, and that'll be it. And then school's over and everybody goes off except summer school. Well, summer school began for me because that's just the way I rolled at Notre Dame. I moved from my normal dorm to the summer school dorm where that priest I had gone to, happened to be the rector also, and I met with him there the previous summer. So he was friendly and we got along and all that. Actually taught me how to play racquetball. That's why I went to him, because I sort of knew him. He went on vacation to visit his mother and sister in Florida for a couple of weeks, and then he sent me a postcard. No big deal. He's whining, complaining about being with his mother and sister, and they're like, fine, who cares? A few days later, he sent me a letter admitting he was the secret pal, and he found me, in his words, irresistible, and would leave it to me to approach him when he returned if I felt the same way. First, no, I didn't. No way in hell. Second, a close friend who I worked with on the golf course during the summers had come back to my room with me to have lunch, pop in toaster, those little toaster ovens we used to have in college, and pop in a chicken pot pie. And it was there when I saw the letter, and I went, hey, look, it's Father John. Opened it up, and I'm like, what? I freaked out when I read that letter. And I showed it to my buddy, Mike, as I'd confided the whole secret pal business to him earlier. He was like, what? Father John is the secret pal? What? Exactly my reaction. We stood there dumbfounded, two essentially teenagers, as the reality set in of what he had said in his earlier letters, especially that last one. At my friend Mike's suggestion, we burned the letter in my sink. And to this day, I'm not exactly sure why. I can't really explain it. The letter was so horrible and the experience was so that I guess we just felt it needed to not exist, the letter. So we burned it. Later that day, I called my parents and told them everything. Then they called my brother, who knew a lot of the leadership priests on campus from his days at ND. I got a call from one of those priests, and the next day he asked me to bring over everything I had and tell him the whole story so he could take notes and the whole bit. So, of course, I did. When he heard everything, he asked where the confession letter was, and I told him I'd burned it in my sink since it was so disturbing. And that was pretty much it. He said, thank you, well, yeah, we'll take care of this. Well, and I left, he left, and that was it. About a week later, a security team came bombing across the golf course where I worked to get me off the golf course and said that I was required to be in the Dean of Students' office immediately. They escorted me there. I had no idea what was going on. To be honest, we'd had a sort of a drunk-a-thon the night before and driven golf carts all over the golf course, like at midnight, having chariot races and toga wars and all that, because that's what was popular back then, if those of you are old enough to remember that. I thought I'd been busted for that. That's what I was thinking. When I walked into the boardroom, a team of about 6 to 8 men were there in suits and ties. They were at one end of this big giant conference table. The dean of students, was at the opposite end of the table near the door, and he told me to come around him and sit down right here to his left. And, of course, I did. And then the games began. And for the record, this all happened the week before my 18th birthday. I was naive and stupid enough to think that they were trying to get at the truth, not cover it up and end my time at Notre Dame in the process. Bastards, all of them. He said, I made some very serious accusations against a priest, and because the proof, so to speak, that confession letter was not available, that I had to be lying. That's what he said to me. I was stunned. Again, I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Then it got worse. He brought Father John in. He's dead now, so I don't mind saying what his name is. He was in his clerics, all the black and the collar and the whole bit, and all done up, and da-da-da. It was the first time I had ever seen him like that in 2 years. I never saw him in his priest stuff, ever. They had him sit directly across from me on the dean's right-hand side. He opened a leather folder, pulled out a 2-page statement from it, and began reading it, where he not only denied everything, but said I had emotional problems as evidenced in things I had said to him in confession, sins I had confessed about being drunk a lot and all that sort of stuff. He said all this right there in front of me, the dean of students, and who I later found out was this whole team of university attorneys. I didn't know that until later. I just like, hey, who's all those guys down there? He broke the seal of confession regarding multiple sins. He read them into an official record at the university. Why? To save his own ass. I went berserk and I lunged at him across the table trying to grab him, but the table was too wide. I called him an effing pervert and disgusting. The dean, James Romer, who is also dead now, mildly pushed me back into my chair and said, calm down. Yeah, right. Then he left the priest, let him finish his statement, reading his statement. And when he was done, he kind of leaned over to him in a very sort of kind, polite way and said, oh, Father, this whole ordeal has been so, horrible for you and everything, so I do apologize. And then he kindly dismissed him from the room. I'm sitting there and like stunned. Remember, I'm a teenager, older teenager. I'm a teenager. I have no idea what the hell is going on. Well, until this started, I didn't know. Then he turned to me and he said, things did not look good for me in my continued time as a Notre Dame student. That son of a... I went nuts saying I had wanted to go to Notre Dame since I was 7, that my nickname on campus was Rah Rah, that I had just missed winning Leprechaun tryouts, that no one loved ND more than me. You can't kick me out. I didn't do anything wrong. Then, while that was going on, I suddenly remembered that my friend Mike was with me and had read the letter. Matter of fact, it was his suggestion to burn it, which I gladly welcomed and said, yeah. I didn't tell the first priests about Mike for some reason. I don't know why. I guess because I was not focused on having to prove anything. I was just saying, hey, yeah, here's everything that happened. By the way, he sent the letter. I burned that. I never thought for a moment they wouldn't believe me. Anyway, the dean told me they were done and I could leave And I said to him, I'm not going anywhere. There was a witness to that letter. Oh, and by the way, his dad is the university provost, who, if I remember the layout correctly, whose office is directly above this room. And I'm not leaving this room until you bring him in here like you brought me in here. I said, you dragged my ass off the golf course. That's where I was working. Now you can go get him and do the same thing. They were all kind of like a little deer in headlights for a moment. They thought the whole case was wrapped up, done. They're going to do whatever their BS is at the end and kick me out. So all of a sudden, this ball comes in from left field. They're like, whoa. So I said loudly, they were sitting there kind of looking at each other, and I said, now, damn it. They got him. Mike came in, sat down, and confirmed every last detail I had revealed to that SOB cheating cleric who pumped me for information a week or so before. After, I know these guys wear their collars and say mass, and seriously, you are in the politics or the work of the destruction of innocent kids or, young, whatever you want to call me, 17, 18-year-old. You participate in this. You actively participate in it. You know it. And you're trying to, destroy people. So after all that, Dean Romer dismissed us both and said he'd get back to me. And, of course, I never heard another word. Nothing. That day, about a week before my birthday, I lost my innocence. A priest had psychologically sexually abused me. The institution tried to cover it up by attacking me and trying to expel me. And this whole sordid affair involved priests, university officials, and a team of attorneys. How do these bastards sleep at night? This is a standing operating procedure with sex abusers and institutions all trying to save their asses by destroying the victims. And in this specific case, it was a massive violation of the seal of confession. Now, I know this story on its own is like, what? And then coupled with yesterday's story about the Canadian priest who did all the stuff with me and, tried to, destroy me there. Both of them involving the seal of confession being broken in outlandish fashion. The overwhelming number of Catholics never experienced the seal of confession being broken, but it happened to me twice. And each time, it was beyond horrible and very public. And for the record, that all happened in the spring and the summer of 1981. Even though the university left Father John in place, meaning in charge of dorms, he was the rector of these dorms for many years. I hope he didn't get to some other kid. I never saw the priest again until 2009 when I was on campus to cover Obama's commencement speech that May. I saw him kind of across the street from the football stadium where the TV cameras, production trucks and things are set up. And I saw him and I'm yelling, "Whoa, Father John!" And I went tearing after him. And I caught up to him and he turned around and he just kind of looked at me and said, "Yes." And I said, "Hi, Father, you remember me?" He looked at me kind of puzzledly, quizzically. He's like, "No, not really." I said, "Look harder. Michael Voris. You remember now?" He looked a little longer, kind of studying my face, I guess, or whatever. Then his eyes got very big, and he said, and kind of like his breath changed and everything. He said, "I'm so sorry. I don't know what to say. Can you forgive me? Can you ever forgive me?" I paused and I said I did, and I walked away. He died a few years later. Coming to you from Houston, Texas, I'm Gary Michael Voris. God love you.